Wanted to take a second to share something with you. For those of you who didn't see it, I did a live last week where I talked about how I completely botched a discovery call with a potential patient. This happens every so often where I feel like I'm kind of having an out-of-body experience, watching myself talk to somebody, and I'm just like, oh my god, why are you, Morgan, why are you saying what you're saying right now? And the reason I posted it and I wanted to do this follow-up is because I want you to know, if this is something that you're new to, talking to your own patients, being your own front desk, you're not alone if it feels like something that is a little bit scary, or you feel like maybe you're not super good at. I wouldn't say that I'm amazing at it, but I followed my own advice from what I said in the video last week, where there was an unknown number that called me. So I was working on something else at the time, so I just declined the call and hoped for a voicemail. And when I listened to the voicemail, the person who called me, he left a message that was a minute and a half long that had a bunch of information in it about what he had going on. So in a way, I was a little lucky that he left so many details in the message, because then I took the time to write down a few notes before calling him back so that I had questions to ask him, and I kind of knew already what my plan was going to be. Those are the first two tips I think I talked about in my video last week. About if somebody is calling your practice phone number, best practice is to answer the phone, but I know sometimes I get really anxious about it, and I'm sure that other people here do too. It's best practice to pick up the phone. I let it go to voicemail so that I can kind of gather myself, especially if I'm in the middle of something else. I'm working on a course right now. It's really hard for my brain to switch back and forth. Letting it go to voicemail is the first tip, potentially. You can take it or leave it. And then the second thing that would be really helpful to do if you do let it go to voicemail, or they text you, is either listen to the voicemail, read their text, and write down some notes about who they are, what they're calling about, and maybe what their goals are before you call them back. And so that's what I did today. If this would be helpful, comment script down below and I'll copy and paste the discovery call script that I just threw together in a second, because it's really quick, and then that way I've found that it's a little bit less overwhelming for me to go into the conversation. But anyway, so we have our first two tips, and then tip number 3 is writing out your script, so different questions you'd want to ask. What I've also been doing is writing out the way that I want to introduce myself on the phone, because I messed this up last week. I just completely panicked and it was just not great. The way that I typically call potential patients back and clients for anything is I call them and say, hi, this is Morgan Meese, a physical therapist at the Well Physio. I'm calling for John Smith. And the client will say hi, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll say hey, I just listened to your voicemail and wanted to give you a call back and, kind of discuss things with you and talk a little bit more about what's going on. Would that be okay? And they say yes, and it's great. And even that, I wouldn't necessarily say is this smoothest opening, but it was way better than last week, let me tell you. One of these days, I want to record myself actually talking on the phone and post it here for you so that you can see that not perfect whatsoever and calling potential clients back. But anyway, so I literally wrote out this script so that I sounded professional and put together and everything cool. That's something that really helped me a lot. And so in this tiny discovery call script, it's just kind of intro, make sure is now still a good time to talk, and then questions that I asked, that I outlined to ask him was I listened to your voicemail, I heard that you have XYZ going on, how can I help? Tell me, I think what I just said was this is what I heard, tell me a little bit more about like how it started and what's going on. And so then the person I spoke with like launched into, you know, a whole 6-month story about what they had going on. But the questions were like, how can I help? Tell me a little bit more about what's going on. What have you tried already, or what are you currently doing to try to help with it? And what goals are you trying to get out of it? You know, so it's kind of like the other way that I'll outline it is like current, desired, problem. Like that, those can be like 3 headings. And that's what like I teach people in the DPT to CEO program. And really like how I do all calls. It's just what's the current situation, the desired situation, and what's the problem? Like what is keeping you from doing that, or like getting better or whatever. But it was just 3 questions. It was basically like a 4-part script for a discovery call where it's introduction, calling back because XYZ, and maybe like I heard this on the voicemail you left. How can I help? What have you tried? What are your goals? Essentially, like why are you seeking help right now? I think that can be a really good question too. And then I had a notes section. So just like everything that he told me about like his PMH, like imaging, other testing he's had done. He is an avid bowler, so he wants to get back to bowling, and he also told me about his occupation. So he has like a desk job with really long hours, holds a lot of tension like in traps, his hamstrings are tight, his low back is painful whenever like his hamstrings are tight. In my experience, when people have called me, I would say it's about like 50-50 in the past, where like there might be a person like this who is just like, let me tell you all the things, which I really like. I like having all the details, and you know, like I really appreciate that they trust me, like just having called me. We don't know each other yet, versus like people I talk to on the phone who don't really share many details at all. That actually I think brings up a pretty good point about like picking and choosing who you want to work with, because not every discovery call or even every eval is going to lead to you like working with somebody over the long term, and that's okay. Like from what I just said, this person I spoke to today, John Smith, I like all the details he gave me. He's being like very straightforward about, I want help right now, can you help me with this? Versus the person I spoke with last week, very short answers. Like I was asking her questions and she would just say like, yes, okay, like the whole time. And that's not really like, I totally understand why she might have been asking that, but like that's not the vibe that I need with my client, because I prefer having all of the details. So anyways, I just thought that was interesting and wanted to bring it up. And I feel like this, I'm so sorry, this video is kind of like a little scattered, but I wanted to talk about it before I forgot, because I think this is a really important point, and that like you need to have a like clear-cut way of how you are going to take phone calls with potential clients. And like at the very, 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 very basic level, it's going to be like introduction, tell me a little bit more about what's going on, what have you tried, and what are your goals, you know, or like what's making you like reach out for help, like why do you want help? And I really like that question, because they could just not do anything about it, you know. I hope that's helpful, and thanks for watching, because this video is a little bit all over the place, but I really wanted to share last week's experience and this week's experience with you, because you know, even though I have a business coaching program and I have a cash practice and I've been doing it for years, I'm not perfect. And that's okay. All right, well, you guys let me know what you think. If you have any other comments or questions on this stuff, please let me know in the comments down below. So I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.